Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday evening. We are first and foremost going to thank Jake Tonkel for creating a platform for us young women of color to join here today and have a conversation, an open, free-flowing conversation about what's going on in today's political climate and how it's affecting each and every one of us. We'll go ahead and start off with introductions. Mira, if you want to go ahead and start off first.
Hi everyone, my name is Mira. I am a recently graduated senior from Leland High School, and I've been involved with Jake's campaign on and off for the past couple months. But other than that, I am a huge activist in my community, trying to get youth to use their voices and their platforms to talk about things that they're passionate about. And that's what I've been trying to do over the past couple of years before I leave off for college. So I'm excited to be here today and talk about issues that are important to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mira. And Charisse, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Charisse Orange. I am a planner with Santa Clara County Parks. Since I moved to the Bay Area back in 2015, I've done a lot of community work, from working with Youth Hype, which is a local organization, also the African American Community Service Agency. I met Jake actually last year through the New Leaders Council Institute, which we were a part of. And I had the wonderful opportunity of being the curriculum chair this year for our 2020 Institute. I do a lot. I'm also one of two of the diversity directors for the American Planning Association or the California chapter, and an advisory board member for Green Foothills.
Wow, thank you for doing so much for our community, Charisse, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Absolutely.
And Jenna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenna Kata. I'm a local San Jose resident, born and raised. I recently graduated from San Jose State, and I've been involved with the community recently, doing a lot of research for San Jose Strong about a resource here with Mary, you see her, about the budget specifically and different resources available for San Jose residents.
Wonderful, thank you. And Mary.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Mary Jessie Celestine. I'm a rising senior engineering major at Harvey Mudd College in Claremont, California. So I have a lot of experience in engineering. Some things about me: I'm a musician and a fantasy writer. I love running. I'm the founder of San Jose Strong, which I'll probably talk about throughout this conversation, as you already just heard a little about that. And I got Mira on the team yesterday. So we have a really awesome team. We've been doing amazing work in the community. So that's really been center point for me for this past few weeks, 2-3 weeks. Been crazy, but yeah. And so I'm really excited to be here with all of you guys. I live in downtown San Jose. It's the longest I've been home since going to college, and I absolutely love San Jose. And so I'm excited to get involved and talk with you guys and learn from you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And for those of you just joining us, we're having a roundtable discussion with 4 lovely young women of color here to discuss the political climate and how it's affecting us in our day-to-day and in our roles as activists here in San Jose. And specifically, I know a lot of you have mentioned how you are activists in your communities and how you're helping give back and work towards a goal of a San Jose for all. Again, tying it back to why we're all here. Here in support of Jake Tonkel. He's running for San Jose City Council. I personally know Jake. I've been in a relationship with him for about 3 years now. So joined on the campaign trail pretty early on. He decided to run. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into, but we've luckily been able to communicate and get in touch with so many strong and important groups in San Jose that previously, I'll be honest, I didn't know existed. I am actually a San Jose native myself, born and raised in San Jose, and then graduated from San Jose State University. And now I'm also living in the downtown area, still within District 6. But again, learning so much from so many different people, so many organizations out there. So I wanted to ask you guys how you're doing transitioning in and out of the shelter in place, how that's looked for each of your organizations and your personal contributions back to San Jose, how you guys have adjusted, and what it is that you're doing to help with the community throughout COVID. Mira, let's go ahead and start with you.
Awesome. So I've actually been more active than I originally thought. So as I previously stated, I was a senior this year. So I had already finished most of the high school experience that consumes your time when you're a student. And so I had a lot of free time at the beginning of shelter in place. So I first decided to kind of get back into some of my hobbies, and one of them included earring making. So I've actually started a small business over quarantine, and it's called Shop Made for You. It's on Instagram, and basically I sell earrings, and part of the proceeds were originally going to a school in Cambodia that I worked with a couple years ago called the Doris Dolan School in Cambodia, but now they are going, all profits for the next couple of days are going towards the Black Lives Matter movement, towards local businesses and other organizations to support grassroots, both activist groups and businesses. So I think that's awesome that I'm able to use something that I love to help out and provide a resource for other people. And then the other thing I did was a lot of kids in downtown San Jose and other parts of the community actually faced a more difficult transition from normal life to shelter in place, and especially students were facing a shortage of resources and technology. So I helped organize and lead a shelter in place drive where kids like myself who are privileged enough to have access to those supplies and who may have had a lot of extra unopened supplies that were supposed to be used for the part of the year that no longer kind of existed, to kind of deliver that to kids that need it. So that was a huge portion of my shelter in place. It took up about a month or so, and we were able to donate over 400 supplies and $100 to Family Giving Tree to organize it. So I've been pretty busy during shelter in place, but it's been awesome that I get a chance to work with my community and engage like never before. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Getting real creative here. And Charisse, go ahead and give us what you've been working on in the shelter in place and how you're helping out with the community.
Yes. So for me, shelter in place has completely did a 360 in my life. So I went from being in a gorgeous park every day to go to work and having to drive to literally working at home. And then 2 months into working from home, I got activated as a disaster service worker for the COVID-19 response. So I really have been invested into that and working, but it has allowed me to be more active in my community. So I helped at the Youth Height rally on Juneteenth and a couple of the logistics things. And because now I'm learning a lot more about COVID and prevention, so I was able to provide hey guys, make sure we're doing this and we have social distancing and make sure everyone wears a mask. And also, how can we protect our youth and who can we work with and partner with to make sure that the couple of unfortunate situations that we have had with San Jose Police and the Sheriff's Office don't happen at this youth rally for kids, because we want to make sure that they understand that they can demonstrate that they don't agree with something and not be taken as a negative stance on a situation. So I've been definitely more active. And then also for myself, I own my own business. It's a creative agency. So I've been able to really be there for my clients and help them pivot in this situation, especially going from brick and mortar stores to having to convert everything online, and what does that look like, and how can I still how can I still survive in a situation that no one planned for. So that's pretty much what I've been doing for the past few months.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And Jenna.
Yeah, so I honestly really kind of liked the slow down pace of life for COVID-19. But of course, I have the privilege of living at home and not worrying about that stuff. But yeah, to stay engaged with my community initially before the Black Lives Matter protests really took on, I was working with a small nonprofit called Aman, and it helps local refugees in the Bay Area, which is a big hub for refugees, especially coming from the Middle East and North Africa. And other African countries. So, and we've had to really shift the way that we raise money and kind of inform the community about refugee struggles. So it was an interesting shift to switch to like a more online based fundraising platform. And then when the protests started kicking up, I decided to really shift my focus to focus more on police brutality and Black Lives Matter movement. And so I organized a protest with some other great organizers called, it was a solidarity protest to educate the Middle Eastern community about the issues that Black people in our communities deal with and how they are intersected to our issues, but of course not the same, and kind of pushing our community to be more involved and recognize that we need to be allies in this time. And then from there, I really started to work with Mary for San Jose Strong.
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Oppression of marginalized communities is such a huge issue. And I love that you mentioned the intersectionality of it all. But again, bringing the Black Lives Matter movement to the forefront. I'm not sure, I know a lot of you have already touched on it, but Mary, if you wanted to go ahead and say what you're doing regarding COVID and also touch on the Black Lives Matter movement and how that's affected you.
Yeah. Well, for starting, back when shelter in place started, I actually wasn't in the States when that started. I was studying abroad for the semester in New Zealand with the engineering department at the University of Auckland. And so there was a hot minute where I almost was going to be staying in New Zealand because New Zealand is like the place that is handling it the best. But the US was like, if you don't come home now, we're just gonna leave you there. So then, I came back home and, was quarantined for the first couple weeks, making sure I maintained like social distancing. Well, I still maintain social distancing, but just really not interacting with people. And so I'm still in my semester. My semester ends this week. So I have my last, I have 3 finals, 2 tomorrow and 1 in 2 more days. So that's been a lot of shelter in place for me, has been adjusting to online learning, especially like I'm still in the University of Auckland's courses. So international classes, like the hours are weird. I'll submit things at 5 a.m. I have no reason to wake up early either. It's all bad. But for myself personally, I was taking a lot of that time to focus on like my creative pursuits. So, as a musician, this was really, really fun. I haven't had a chance to edit it yet because things have been hectic, but I enlisted my parents to shoot like my debut music video around downtown San Jose. So there's a week, like each day, different hairstyle, different outfits, and we went out to different parts of downtown, and I like directed the music video. And I've just been like working, I'm like a fantasy writer, so I've been working on this trilogy for the past like 8 years, and so we're done with book 1 and now I'm trying to do book 2. Those are like the 2 things I was doing early on in COVID. Being helpful, I was teaching some I did some tutorials for AP courses because people were online, and so I made some here's how you can learn and understand calculus videos for some kids in the Claremont, Pomona, Inland Empire area. So that's back in SoCal, where I have most of my teaching STEM education work is there. But Mira knows about my STEM work up in the Bay Area. We know each other through some Girl Scout connections. But yeah, and so then a few weeks ago, the world started to uprise, and I was personally feeling pretty overwhelmed. I live on 4th Street, so I live a block from City Hall. And so I was really like, I was there for the first protest. And the only reason why I was there was because it was literally outside of my window. And my mom said, "Why aren't you outside?" And I was like, I had no idea what was happening, because that was like before things were really getting organized. But yeah, so I like was really witnessing the police violence by San Jose PD firsthand, seeing, tear gas, rubber bullets on peaceful protesters, being there with peaceful protesters, the curfew, like seeing everyone's chilling, and then they like circle City Hall. I go home to make sure that I'm safe like a few minutes before, and then within minutes you start hearing, the tear gas explosions, the helicopters. And then I was just feeling really overwhelmed. I'm a big nerd for city development. That's what I love about in engineering, infrastructure, reinventing the modern day city, smart cities. And like I work with Deborah Costa. She's the former chief innovation officer for San Leandro. And so like, I'm really invested in seeing how the Bay Area can change on that front, right? So as the Black Lives Matter movement was really taking center stage in our conversations nationally, globally, everywhere around the world, everyone's marching in solidarity, right? So I was thinking, okay, what's happening here in San Jose? And so for that Blackout Tuesday, I posted a guide to activism that was centered to San Jose. So I didn't know about any of most of the protests elsewhere, but I knew what was happening downtown. Like I knew when people were meeting in City Hall. I also knew there was plenty of space. Like one day I even brought my homework out. I sat like alone in the back. Like it was overall pretty safe. A lot of my friends were saying they couldn't go downtown because, all the crazy looters, and like there were some hectic people, but the majority of the protesters were keeping those people accountable, and the majority of shop owners were in support and in solidarity. And I wasn't seeing any of that news coverage of just, how the cars were out there showing support, right? So I had this, I made this guide, and then people really, really loved it. I posted on my Instagram. I didn't promote it. I come back and I start seeing, I start getting like 50 to 100 DMs a day. Everyone's trying to like, where are the protests? How can I get involved? Like, I'm a medic. Like, how can I help? And so I enlisted some friends. We released a second guide to similar support. And I said, okay, I need to take this off my personal platform. I'm up late. It's like 2 a.m. with a friend of mine. And I'm like, what should we call this? And I'm like, we're San Jose strong, right? It's like, I'm like, I haven't been sleeping in like 48 hours. And so we made this San Jose strong. And I launched the Instagram page. And so I know I've been talking to you guys for a bit, but since, okay, cool. So I'm getting silent support to keep talking. But I guess a little bit about how San Jose is structured and like what we've been up to the past few weeks. It's really been awesome. We have like over 100 volunteers on our volunteer team. I built a Discord that has respective channels and categories so people can find each other to get involved. Things that we've been up to. We have our website. So basically people can submit events and protests, organizations and businesses, and they're updated to our spreadsheets. And we also have calls to action. So we have centralized locations to contact all your council members, find out where your district is, just understanding all those things. We've been working on guides for getting involved, as Jenna was talking about with the budget, having committees that are working on researching in different pockets. So, we had our budget committee, we have an environment committee, a voters guide committee for the upcoming fall, like a bunch of awesome, really cool committees of people who've come together. We really want to showcase existing work that's been going on, as well as finding and filling in pockets of needs. So if I like scale back and say like, what is San Jose strong? I'd say like, think of us a lot like a mall where you can come and find out ways to get engaged in San Jose. So like you just moved to San Jose and you want to know what's going on and the awesome organizations involved, like you can come to our page with our awesome programming team that's developing a way cooler website soon to be released. But you can come to our page and really learn about the culture and community of San Jose. So making local government accessible, making mentorship programs available within our group, but also connecting to other groups. So for the conversations about defunding the police and what that looks like, we're not doing that in-house. We know that Debug's been doing this work for forever, and we really want to support and showcase the families who've lost loved ones to San Jose PD, right? So we act as a channel for people who want to get involved and get engaged. And we say, okay, these are groups that have been fighting the fight. We want to uplift their voices. Let's support them. But then, you know, we want to host a music festival for Black artists in San Jose. I'm going to do that in-house, have an awesome committee. We've partnered with the Sofa Market, planning to host that in the end of July, right? So there's things that we're doing in-house, and then there's also things that we're supporting. But everything that we do, we want to make sure that we center it on those who are directly impacted and make sure that the community can have input into what it is that we're pushing forward. So if we talk about something that's happened, we make sure that we've talked with who's been impacted by what's happened first, and center our research and our analysis and our expertise on supporting and uplifting the voices of San Jose. So that's my really long spiel at you guys. I could talk for forever about San Jose Strong, but it's been super exciting just seeing San Jose come together. The outpouring of support has been insane. And yeah, so again, thank you guys for having me here.
Absolutely.
I'm about to pass it on now.
Thank you so much for giving us so much information about San Jose Strong and what you guys are doing for, you know, the community. And we're seeing now more than ever, there's a need, there's a demand for, you know, guidance and how we, you know, navigate all of this, because it is a little bit hectic and not knowing where to start. For those of you listening, San Jose Strong, a great resource to have in San Jose here. So thank you for everything you're doing. And I'm not sure if all of you might have something to also include regarding your organizations and what you're doing with the Black Lives Matter movement, and how that's also impacted each of you as people of color. So I'm not sure if anyone, I mean, I can open it up for discussion. If anyone has something that they wanted to add, go for it.
I can kind of like jump in from like the person of color perspective. So I think the one thing that I feel like I've grown a lot as a person, because I've educated myself more about like everything that's going on than I've ever done before. I think that a lot of times I've seen on Instagram slacktivism, or people being maybe openly making a comment or something that I just sometimes would pass because I'm like, it's not my fight to fight, or it's just like, it's, you know, they're really immature and I wouldn't be okay with it, but I never really stood up unless it was like very overt, like hatred or overt anger or overt like something offensive or something like that. But I think through this entire month, like about almost, it's coming towards around a month right now, I've learned, like, from my perspective as like a person of color, is that like, if I was in this position, like how would I want the people around me to act, and like how would I want the people around me, like how would I want to be treated? And so I've really built a backbone during this entire movement, and I'm so thankful that yesterday Mary and I like connected again, and like she's bringing me back to see like and work with like San Jose Strong. But on my own, I think the only thing that, like, not the only thing, but one of the things I've been doing is directing people on my platform on social media to kind of educate themselves, because I think a lot of times kids just make bold assumptions. And of course I can say that because I've been guilty of it myself, or they'll just assume information without actually reading or understanding the facts. And I've seen a lot of slacktivism in the past, but now if I see someone posting something that they don't actually know about, or maybe it's not correct, I'll actually say like, wait a second, I don't think that's like correct. And then I'll kind of like push them to either find resources like San Jose Strong that can provide other resources for them, or I can try myself to like provide a resource to educate them. But I think there's a cool thing that I've learned about like educating versus teaching. Like, it's not my role to teach anybody about like systemic racism, yes, or all the history that we've learned in the past about like everything that's been going on for the past 400 years that America has been around. But it is my responsibility as someone who is both a community member of San Jose and who's lived here her whole life, and as a student and as a person that has platforms on different areas, like to be able to provide them with resources and information so they can educate themselves. Because I think more than anything, we need to be united about like so many of the different things that are going on, and we need to come together as a community to be able to fight for the injustices that are happening both outside of the government but also within the government. And so I think that that's definitely something that that's a huge reason why I've learned how to be a good ally, and I've also tried to be in support or like come and work with people that I believe can like help even more on their platforms to use their voices and create change. So yeah,
absolutely. I feel like you're spot on with that. Like, misinformation, I feel like, can be so divisive, and now more than ever, like you mentioned, we need to stand in solidarity with other people of color and show our support and defend the people that are being pushed down, essentially stepped on, and overtly being called names, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. And like you said, a lot of times you feel like that's not your place, but I think it's starting to become our place to at least be allies in this situation, and directing people in, like, to the resources that will allow them to inform themselves is an amazing way to do it. That's great. And Charisse, did you have anything to add to the conversation as well?
Sure. I know for me, with everything that's happening, it was kind of like PTSD for me in a way. So literally the same week that I had moved to California, I'm from Baltimore, we had the Freddie Gray riots. And I saw what that did to a neighborhood, because that was actually the neighborhood that I worked in, the people that I helped and planning for. And through that time, I just realized, it's very hard to plan for the future if you're so focused on making sure that you live today and that, you outlive that day. So on the planning side with APA, we've been really having the conversations about, like, how do we as planners, like, tear down these systems brick by brick, because it's systematic, and it's not just the police structure that's the issue. Like, you have to go back to policy and look at zoning and understand that zoning has an effect on taxes, and taxes has an effect on resources, and really understanding where that money goes. So we're working on right now, like, creating an implicit bias training for our entire region, so planners can come and just learn how to create a well-rounded planning process. And the biggest thing is, like, not using technical terms. Like, who really knows that R1 means, like, residential zoning 1, which is really just a single family house. Like, use terms that people know, so people can actually be able to advocate for themselves and tell you what they need, instead of you coming in with your government hat on and this is what we did all the studies, we looked at everything, we did this, we did that, and here's your plan. Good luck. It's really important to do advocacy planning and placemaking and have community members actually be a part of the planning process and being the voice to the movement. So seeing everything that's happening in San Jose is really refreshing, because it's people driven and versus policy driven. And we teach kids so much, like, go out and vote, go in and do this and vote for the person that you want to be in office. But we never talk about how you get that person out of office if they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And I feel like now that we are, that Black Lives Matter is more on a global scale, because you have to understand, if you don't protect the lives of one group, eventually all of us are going to get knocked down and just get picked off one by one. So we have to make sure that we create a safe place for all people of color to advocate for themselves, to be able to voice their opinions, to not be afraid to be the only Black person in the room. I for years have been, like, literally the only Black person, the only female. Like, it's natural for me and it doesn't bug me anymore. But I remember before, like, it was absurd to me. I didn't understand why. So yeah, I'm just really happy about what's going on right now. But I just want to make sure, and that's why I keep doing what I'm doing, that it's not just for this season, but let's keep all the same energy next year and the year after and 10 years from now to make sure that, you know, I don't have kids right now, but like I want my kids in 10 years to like not have to worry about walking down the street and being antagonized just because of the way they look, not the person who they are, or like if they were doing something. So I'm hopeful right now.
Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, we've all seen how much momentum this movement has built up and how, you know, it's growing, like you said, on a global scale, and people are watching. We have we have everyone's eyes on this movement, and it's because we want change, and we want change in politics and in government. And especially now with the election coming up, people are, I'm hoping, not going to let up. And Jana, we haven't heard from you yet, but I'm not sure if you want to build off of that to see, you know, what it is that you want to see change in San Jose specifically. Are there things that you feel our local government maybe could do better?
Yeah, I think that, of course, one of the biggest issues that we have right now is housing. And it disproportionately affects communities of color. And that's something that we need to recognize. And also understand the reasons why we have like the root causes for homelessness, right? And the exploitative nature of the systems that we have in place that make things more expensive, make it just so difficult to simply live, and how, you know, people are working, but they still can't afford to live because, you know, the people, the CEOs and the higher ups are taking their big cut and they're not giving their employees better wages. And so that's kind of through these discussions and through the Black Lives Matter movement, it's also recognizing that it's not just police, right? It's this entire system that is built to extract and exploit people, especially people of color, predominantly Black people, as they've been since the start of this country, so that other people can continue to make money and make money beyond your wildest dreams. Like when we look at Jeff Bezos. And so one of the conversations, and I think I'm kind of diverting from your question, but and it's related to San Jose, is thinking about where you spend your money, right? We want to invest in local businesses because when we buy from Amazon, for example, we are not, our money is political, right? And so we're giving money to someone who doesn't espouse our values. And so we, you know, something else that I would love to see from San Jose is building up those small businesses and continuing to support those, because that is also, I think people don't recognize, but that is also political power. So yeah, that's a short answer, I think.
No, I agree with everything that you're saying. We've seen it firsthand. We're seeing people being displaced. We see it with our homeless population. We see people struggling to make ends meet. We see our, you know, our workforce, the people that are essential in light of COVID, working and exposing themselves and, you know, risking a lot for, you know, a life living paycheck to paycheck, you know, barely making rent. And we have a lot of, you know, corporations coming in that are building, you know, tall buildings downtown that are really pushing people out of our community. It's out of our home. And these are the people that built San Jose, right? So it's really heartbreaking to see that right here in our backyard, and trying to do everything that you can to bring that, like, shed light on this issue. I think local government plays a huge role in that. And I'm not sure if anyone else wants to jump in and tell us a little bit about what you might want to see change in San Jose as far as local government goes, what policies you want to push. You feel free to jump in.
I have a comment, and it's not a policy particular comment. It's a structural comment, which San Jose Strong has been taking on. Like if we're talking about like housing. Like earlier this afternoon, we were partnered with Only in San Jose podcast to showcase the upcoming appointments for the planning commission. That there's 5 vacancies in the planning commission that are going to be filled next week, and that nobody knew about it. And also it was like a mess to figure out, like the interviews. I was there for like an hour of the interviews, and there's like 25 people on this YouTube interview. And then if you're looking at the candidates list, it was this 100-page document that even me just trying to spend time to look at it, I was like, this is not it. And, you know, we had awesome volunteers. So one of our volunteers went through that entire document and made a very concise, really beautiful voter's guide style of the commissions, right? So like that's on our page, and people can go and read about who are the candidates, and then watch the interviews, see which ones they like. And instead of spending 10 hours trying to figure out what's happening on the websites, you can just go right there. And then you could email your councilman saying, oh, I like these 2. I think they should be the 2. And yeah, making things accessible. There's so many things that just in the past 3 weeks alone that I've learned about what's going on in local government, where for me, it feels that there's not enough effort to make things accessible to every citizen of San Jose and make sure that every citizen of San Jose's voice is heard, where it's more of like, oh, if someone just didn't catch the meeting, or if they just didn't know what was happening, then, oh, well, I guess they didn't care enough. When it's like, no, like citizens of San Jose want to be engaged, want to be involved. You know, I have people who are DMing me, just didn't even know what a city council meeting was, let alone how to access the budget meeting and then make a comment and talk in the meeting, right? So making politics and policy accessible, I think, is a really big issue here, like everywhere, but obviously I'm focused on San Jose. So those are the things that I've been noticing that I would love seeing changes within.
Yeah, I completely agree. The city council meetings, and the ones particularly that you want to comment on, or, you know, you want to be there to show your support for, are usually during the day when, you know, it's a 9-to-5 job. You're probably not available. You're not going to be there. So making it accessible and, you know, being transparent about the decisions that are being made on behalf of the people of the community that aren't even, you know, being represented is just, it's pretty messy to say the least. Anybody else want to comment on, you know, changes they want to see or where they feel improvement can be made in local government here in San Jose?
Yeah, I'll just add on really quickly. I think one of the big calls is defunding the police, right? And reinvesting in our communities. I know that this is a very contentious issue. I mean, maybe not on this panel, but in our community in general, because it sounds, I've had this conversation with my own family where they're like, well, you know, is this going to be some anarchist city where we don't have any control? Like, what about crime and all of this different stuff? And I think something that a lot of people need to recognize is the way that police interact with white people and white passing people versus and wealthier neighborhoods versus low income areas or communities of color is very, very different. And so I think that's where a big disconnect is you've had positive experiences with police your whole life. You don't recognize that this is actually harming the, you know, our neighbors and our other communities. And so for people like me too, like I'm very white passing. I've also had pretty relatively like good, you know, interactions with police, but it's just not the same. And recognizing that defunding the police means that for everybody else, it's going to be, they're like, AOC said it best, right? Or she said it in a really good way. I don't know if she said it best, but that defunding the police is kind of like, it would be like a white suburbia. You know, you're not going to interact with police all the time. They're not going to be surveilling your neighborhood all the time. You know, And then crime is predictable. So when we defund the overinflated 44% of our general fund budget, remove some of that and invest it in our communities, like mental health resources and other services that help our community, crime will go down because crime is predictable, and crime also comes out of poverty. So it's recognizing that we're all on the same team. We all want the same San Jose that is equal and good for all people. But, you know, this is the way that a lot of people think is the best way to do so. I would agree with that, you know, is defunding the police and reinvesting in our communities. So I think that's a huge conversation we're having in San Jose. But surprisingly, I think a lot of San Jose is on board, but not most of it. When you look at different, at least national statistics, it seems like that's actually a scary thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the phrase itself scares people off. They feel like the police, you know, and this is usually coming from people that are a little bit wealthier or live in what they claim to be a safer neighborhood because they're not exposed to, like what you said, inequity in the city of San Jose. And if they feel that, you know, defund the police takes off, they feel like their sense of protection might be missing. But what we're talking about and what most people need to understand is a budget of $449 million. And when we're calling 911, it might not be something that necessarily needs to be met with an armed officer. It can be something that's, you know, met with mental health professionals, as something that can be de-escalated by people in the community that know how to handle a situation like that. And again, just criminalizing people of color is just going to exacerbate the problem. And we've seen, you know, here in San Jose, unfortunately, a lot of discrimination, and that's why the Black Lives Matter movement is still so prevalent, you know, and still carrying momentum. And we're seeing it, and we're seeing it worse than we've ever imagined. We're seeing it, you know, on social platforms, blatant bigotry and racism, unfortunately, here in our backyards. So does anyone else want to add about, I mean, what defunding the police would look like for us here in San Jose?
I don't know if I necessarily, like, I think the rhetoric behind like defunding the police is obviously a little bit misguided because it means something different to every person. I think going back to both Jenna and Mary is that we need transparency and accountability from politicians, because there is no politicians if there is no people. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I also think that in terms of like, and I've had this conversation with plenty of people in the South Asian community, because that is one big thing is like this idea of like policing equaling safety. And I think that the idea of like putting funds into community resources so that they're accessible to everyone is so important. And unfortunately, I've seen in the past couple of weeks, especially how like our local government and state government and federal government has handled certain things in the ways that like they're not holding any accountability to some of the things that they've said or done in the past, and instead they are choosing to ignore that. And even in our local government, in San Jose government, not even with all the complaints about the lack of transparency and the lack of understanding how to, you know, sit in on a city council meeting or actually know what's going on in our community, I haven't seen a lot of changes from the government in terms of even knowing that this is an issue that's even more transparent now because of everything going on. People do want to sit in on the meetings. People want to understand what's happening, but it's still harder to access it. And if I go into the San Jose government website right now, I can't navigate it. I'm 18, like I'm young. I should be able to understand the internet. I cannot access that website. It's so confusing to me. And I want someone, and I've been using San Jose Strong actually and a bunch of different social media platforms to get the baseline information, to which then if I choose to, I can go ahead, go outside and do my own research. But you you need to, like, government needs to be able to provide resources, right? And so you can see, when I saw the budget meeting, I think there was a graphic that was that kind of showed, I think that was from San Jose Strong too, but you kept on swiping and you could see how like disproportionate the budget of San Jose PD was to the rest of the other facilities, like Parks and Rec, library budget, and all these different other budgets. And so it was like really disheartening to see, because I know that there's so many different aspects of the government that are put at risk when there is a budget that exists that can actually be a little bit that can be reduced to put in money, but instead what they're doing is they're cutting budgets of like things that are deemed important, like libraries and Parks and Rec, and continuing even after hearing like local, like the community, the San Jose community, what they have to say about that, they're still continuing to do it. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And I think that in the future, I know that if when I come back to San Jose from college, I want to see my parents and my family and my community being able to, be like, hey, I'm about to go and sit in at a local city council like meeting. I'm going to listen to a budget meeting, and like without like any issues, without having to navigate it, they can click on a link and boom, there they are. Or like they actually have the resources to be able to do it if they so choose to. So I think that that's like something really important to like keep in mind, I guess.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. That is a nightmare to try to navigate that website. And it looks like Mary has something to add as well.
Yeah, I just want to make a semi-quick note that I think it's also important to talk about the culture in our country of pushing aside what we don't like. And that's like, you see that on an interpersonal level with just how people will like communicate and like blocking or whatever, things like that. But also just like when you're talking about like why we call the police, a lot of the times, and like Jenna has a guide that we want to release soon about this, but a lot of the times it's really just something that's inconvenient to you, but it would be socially uncomfortable for you to go and address it yourself. And, you know, whether that's like our relationship with elderly, whether that's our relationship with our community members, whether that's a relationship with the homeless, like there's so many things where as a culture, we just say, oh, that's a lot. Let's just pretend it doesn't exist. With our relationship with prisons, like all these things you can like distill in this, oh, if something's uncomfortable and we don't like it, if we can make it invisible to us, let's do that, instead of having a constructive community system that is supportive and transformative and productive for all members involved, right? So I think that when it comes to making these shifts, we have to really change how we organize and structure our society, which, as again, I'm a nerd for cities, right? So I think that we can start it on a city scale. And I think a place like San Jose, right, we're the 10th largest city in the country. Like I think like we could be a place to transform what we think a city means and looks like in terms of communal accountability that would, again, to all the points made here, make these inequalities less impactful and promote a more just world for everybody. And so I want to add that point.
Yeah, and you're mentioning, you know, accessibility, and we talked about transparency as well. I think we also need to talk about inclusivity of, you know, every marginalized community, be it people of color or our LGBTQ communities that don't often have a seat at the table. We're, again, super grateful to have this opportunity to speak with all of you, but, you know, our voices unfortunately aren't always heard, whether it be because of lack of accessibility or just, you know, maybe a topic we don't want to discuss. We're not, you know, racist, or we're not marginalizing those communities. They're just not showing up. They don't have interest. So I think we do need to shift that discussion and have an open conversation about how we can improve upon that. And I don't know if you guys have anything to bring to the table here regarding our LGBTQ community in light of Pride Month coming to a close. I think so much is going on right now that it kind of, along with Black Lives Matter, the COVID-19 pandemic, it's, a lot. It looks like Mary wants to jump in here. But did you want to say something to that note?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring awareness to Shante Thomas. She's a Black trans woman who lives in downtown San Jose. Her San Jose PD shot rubber bullets and grenades into her house during the first couple weeks of the protests. She was injured and her friend's daughter was injured. She still doesn't know why they shot into her home. She has video footage that she was just recording what was happening on the street. And so like we had an interview with her yesterday to talk about it. And, she grew up in Fresno. She has been in San Jose for the past 5 years. She used to be homeless and now has her home, but with everything that's happened and the broken window and the damage, like she's really worried about her steps moving forward. And so I can promote that. We have like her Venmo and her Cash App and her story, and would love to showcase that about what's happening right here in San Jose to support Black trans lives and to support Shante. So I wanted to say that. So, is there, for viewers right now, is there anything that you want to give a link to, or, I know you're with your organization, so go ahead and shout it out and let people know how to reach and support. Yeah, we have her story on all of our social medias at San Jose_strong, as well as on our website on sanjose-strong.com. So if you did the Justice in the Bay link, then her account should be there. And if they're not there, they should be there by the end of the day. So and I want to throw it to other people to talk, because I've been talking, but. Yeah, and then we'll just go in order, I guess. Mira, if you have any, shout outs for your organization, how people can get involved and, contribute to, all of our mission to make San Jose a better place for everyone to live, go ahead and let them know.
Yes, for sure. So really quickly, just to go back, I just think that we need to remember that everything is intersectional, and we need to show solidarity to all communities. At this time, it's really important, obviously, to amplify Black lives, but within that, we need to amplify Black trans lives, Black LGBTQ lives. It's so important that we are supporting every member of the Black Lives Matter movement, because if you say like Black Lives Matter and you don't support one part of that's not what the movement's about. That you're taking away from the movement. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind. Intersectionality is such a key component to all movements, but especially we've seen in this movement that when we say Black Lives Matter, we mean all Black lives matter. It's so important to remember that. And then outside of that, if you guys are interested in earrings, I'm wearing some right now. On Instagram, I am at shopmadeforyou with the letter U instead of the word, because that's so quirky. But I believe that every pair of earrings is made for someone, so they're very unique. They're kind of like one of a kind-ish. There's a few pairs of all of them, and I kind of circulate. And again, all proceeds for the next couple of days, I think I'm going to definitely extend it. All profits are going towards Black Lives Matter organizations and stuff like that. And then also, if you're looking to understand unbiased information, whether that be about minority movements and like the history of America from the perspective of minorities, not just a colonial narrative, and also unbiased information about voting, how to understand local government, because again, that stuff isn't really accessible for youth necessarily, or anyone that's interested, and also activism versus slacktivism, what it means to find and fact check information, and making sure to not just find your information from social media, not just find it from other random sources, but instead use those as bases to amplify your voice, understand, educate yourself. There is something that's going to be starting on Wednesday. Actually, we're going to have once a week week meetings for an hour, and I'm going to be lecturing. There will be a lot of special guests, so definitely look forward for that. I will definitely share the information. It's called Facing the Facts, and the link is just tinyurl.com/FDF sign up. So yeah, those are my shout outs, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Jana, if you want to go ahead and give your organization a shout out, let people watching know how they can support.
Well, I would just say check out San Jose Strong. It's jam-packed with resources. And just a closing thing is that we have to recognize that the rights that we have as communities of color is spearheaded by the Black community, right? And that's also for the LGBTQ community. The Stonewall riots were because of Black people. And so it is essential for us to show up and be there as allies and amplify their voices. But yeah, I really want to pass it off to Charisse because she hasn't had a chance to, I haven't heard her voice in a while, so.
Absolutely.
It's okay. I've just been listening to the amazing words from everybody. Just echoing off of Mira and Jana, I am a Black woman who happens to be bisexual. So I think it's important that, you know, when we talk about all Black lives, like literally all Black lives, I don't care about your gender, I don't care about your sexual orientation, I don't care about a disability, I care about you as a person and pushing that forward. And then also just being transparent. Don't, I call it like, don't be a thumb gangster. So don't have a whole bunch of like gangsterness because you're behind the screen and you have so much to say behind the screen, but yet when you're out in front, when you're in the community, then you have nothing to say. Like what happened to your boldness? what happened to all your voice? Did you just forget, you know, words? So be an activist in your house, be an activist on the street, be an activist with your money. You don't have to go to a protest to protest. You protest with your dollars because that's what really makes a change. With that, I would say please donate to Youth Hype. You can go to their Instagram page, Youth Hype _ and it's a phenomenal organization led by my sister, Latoya Fernandez, who is actually at my house right now, if you guys been hearing people talk. But yes, because and I've learned this in planning, like, not to say that adults are a lost cause, but we have to think about 7 generations out. We have to think about our future. And so if we can work with the kids and work with the youth, and get them to understand that their voice is powerful, that it doesn't have to be this way, and to learn from our mistakes, we can ensure that we're creating the San Jose that we want to really have, the San Jose that's meant for everyone. San Jose is a melting pot full of residents and transplants and, you know, workers, from people that do construction jobs to people that work in tech. Everyone is important. So treat everyone with that same dignity and respect that you want somebody to have back towards you. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Thank you so much for your comments, and thank you all so much for joining us. I just wanted to add also for our viewers, we're adding a page to Jake's campaign page, or actually like a tab, and it's going to include a Black Lives Matter allyship and resource page for those of you interested in checking that out. Jake's website is going to be Jake, his first name, Jake, 4, the number 4, the letter D, and the number 6.com. And you can find that, should be uploaded today as well. I want to again thank all of our panelists. Thank you guys for joining us today and all of the insight that you've shared with us. I hope the viewers enjoyed it. I absolutely enjoyed my time with you. So I look forward to connecting with all of you offline sometime soon too. Thank you guys.
Thank you.